We're also recording the revision session. I know you guys may be busy doing this and that and preparing for the exam in the process, but I'm not going to take much of your time. But this is a promise that I made and I am fulfilling. We're doing the second leg of the series of revisions that we said we will have. We did one and we're doing the second one today. We're covering from Candide to Shelley. Um, okay, so let's talk about them. Before I proceed with what I have, I would like to ask you if you have any questions. Now you are either done preparing or halfway through or almost. So if you have any questions, come to the mic and share them with us.
Hi, doctor. How are you?
Yeah, hi. And
وانا
you
كنت اشوف في previous exams, final exams, I noticed there was a difference in the pattern. Some exams were different than the other. Um, our any upcoming final exam, any the questions, uh, essay questions, all of them will become paragraph question or essay question.
the pattern is the same. It never changes. You normally have two parts, and each part has three questions. And the first part is the short answer part. You normally have three questions, and you answer two of them. And the second part is the long essay part, where you normally have three questions and you have to write two long essays on them. This is perhaps the noticeable difference between the midterm and the final exam. The midterm, you answer in the long answer part, you only attempt one long essay. But this time around, because it's the final exam and because it's a 3 hour exam, you answer two long essays and two short uh, answers. And again, what I said about the short answers in that MTA applies here. Short answers does not mean that you write a couple of lines or a paragraph. You write a comprehensive answer, and a comprehensive answer would mean perhaps half a page. Okay, but it has never changed. The format is the same: two long answers and two short answers in the frame within 3 hours, of course.
Thank you.
Um,
Okay, doctor.
you're you're welcome. Again, if you have any questions about the format, I now answered it. We spoke, yeah, I mean, the same thing that I said about the MTA, yeah, applies here. I mean, the idea of comprehensiveness, the idea of clarity, and the idea of relevance. Comprehensiveness means that you need to cover all the aspects of the question. Normally, the question has a number of aspects, not one single element or idea. So you need to be alert about that. You need to be careful. And that would require you to spend the right amount of time reading the question. And it's not a waste of time to perhaps spend 5 minutes having this kind of dialogue with the question, engaging with it, brainstorming with yourself before you commit yourself to the answer. So,
I have another question.
can I finish my line of thought? And
Yeah, sure, sure,
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So this is comprehensiveness. Comprehensiveness لأن شمول الإجابة تبقى شاملة. Okay, Shamila means that you cover all the aspects, and people do that from experience by, again, investing the right amount of time. And how do they do that? They do that by thinking of two things and when they approach a question. One thing is about highlighting and underlining the key concepts. Questions are significant. They are not chosen randomly. They have meaning in themselves. So you need to underline the key words. You have key words and key concepts within the prompt. So you need to first of all underline them, read them, and try to connect them together so that you can come up with a big picture for them. Okay, this is number one. The second part of the process would be to also highlight the instruction words. So we're asking you to do something. So now you have identified the key concepts. Now you don't know what to do with them. So you need to be on the lookout about things like discuss, substantiate, justify. Okay, so you now know that's normally discuss and argue about something, so that you can start an argument, a solid one. So this is how we approach questions. You need to highlight again the key concepts, find them, and then set out to kind of elaborate on them, develop them into a solid essay. This is comprehensiveness. Comprehensiveness also means that you're going to try to refrain away from being irrelevant. So if you invest the right amount of time on the essay prompt or on the question, the likelihood that you digress and talk about irrelevant stuff is not very high. So you need to be relevant. Relevant means that if we give you a question on and about Candide, we're not asking you to tell us everything you know and you don't know about Candide, cover to cover. No, this is not what we're, this is being irrelevant. So this is setting your own question. And we don't want you to set your own question. We have questions for you, and you need to answer those questions. So this is being relevant, and if you're comprehensive, and if you are relevant, you are clear. And clarity happens together with this. Clarity happens when you also fulfill two conditions. One, rhetorical, having to do with flow, with transition, with moving from one paragraph to another, from one line of thought to another in a seamless way, in a cohesive way. There is no contradiction, there is no inconsistency. So this is the rhetorical part of being clear. The other aspect have to do or has to do with your handwriting. Even handwriting can count. Of course, I'm not the best person to talk about handwriting because my handwriting is very lousy myself, but at least I'm not going to do, I'm not clearing an exam anytime soon. So you need to be clear when it comes to your handwriting. I know that you're not going to develop it overnight. It takes time, but you can do it. I mean, if you think that your handwriting is hard to read, you need to perhaps make it big, leave lines, uh, but don't write uh, synonyms in Arabic. Sometimes you're short of a word and you write the meaning in Arabic. This kind of spoils the whole image. Sometimes your essay is excellent, but you kind of pepper it with Arabic words. No, this is not the best policy or approach. So this is as far as the three parameters are concerned. Again, Three things: comprehensiveness, relevance, and clarity. Okay. Amira, you were saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if we will have any question comparing the two authors, Shelley and William.
Well, it doesn't happen,
Oh, okay, nice.
because
And
they
between,
belong to, they normally, I mean, they belong to different generations, like we said, and their poetry, they don't have lots of commonalities, if you like. Yeah.
okay, but comparison between two under the same author, that's possible. We may get
That's
that.
a possibility. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
possibility. I mean, you have this nature background that can make comparisons between two Wordsworth poems possible. For example, you have a political background that can make two Shelley poems comparison possible too. You have women characters in the plays that can make a comparison between Shakespeare and what's the other guy's
Mafia,
name? Mm, yeah,
mafia of,
John Webster.
mm,
yes,
yes,
exactly.
that can make it possible. Comparisons between the characters of Iago and Bussola, for example. Comparisons between the character of Antonio and Bussola because they are both low born. Comparisons between situation within the same play. You can have comparisons between life in Venice and life in Cyprus, what happened in Cyprus, and how Cyprus became a game changer, if you like. Lots of the bad stuff happened, and we spoke about Cyprus and the associations of a sea or a coastal city and stuff like that. So comparisons are there, and they can yeah, yeah, they are possible within the same time period. Like I said, in the Elizabethan age, we're talking about two plays that are similar. They shared lots of, um, you know, background. Um, Perhaps the 18th century is the only thing that because it's only we only have one representative work. So the comparison, comparing it to a time period that is before or after is not possible, but you can have all types of comparisons within the same work. I mean, I'm talking about candid comparisons, perhaps not comparisons, talking about the female characters and how history is written from their own perspective. And of course, they are women and they are downtrodden and what happened to them. Perhaps can talk about the trajectory of travel narrative and how it started and how it developed until we reached the age and the time of Voltaire. Um, a lot of things, as a matter of fact. Munira.
Doctor, when we write essay about poetry, we
Mm.
should at the beginning write the year of publishing and write brief lines of the about the poet,
If this
and
is
then
going to serve your answer, if you're going to present it in a nice way, if you're not going to make a career out of it, if your whole essay is not going to be about the poet when he was born, when he died, and stuff like that, that's fine. Try to be short and sweet. This is, if you have to start this way, make sure you are short and sweet. Don't spend the rest of your life talking about the poet and leave what is required.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah. Abdulaziz, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, hello, doctor. No, it's okay. You answered already my question, but doctor, I think all the poetry, all the poems, they are talking and the nature. If I correct, you can tell me that because when I study all the poetry, Shelley or William Wordsworth, the main subject is nature. Is that correct, doctor?
لا لأنه Shelley is we spoke about in one of his poems he talk about history. He talks about history in one of his poems. There is politics. With Shelley, we never spoke about nature in the in the Wordsworthian sense. I mean, even when he spoke about nature and different elements of nature, he was also talking about the vocation of the poet, where the poet stands, and how the poet can get inspiration from elements of nature like the skylark and wind. And he was appealing to the wind to take him and his work wherever it goes so that he can achieve immortality.
Yeah, it's clear.
So,
Thank you, doctor.
work. Yeah. Who else?
Hello, doctor.
Yeah. Hi,
Uh,
Anin. Hi, how
yeah,
are you?
yeah, I'm good. Doctor, I was wondering when in the poem Percy Shelley, the one that's which one was it? It was the Ode to the West Wind.
Oh, to the
This
west
one,
wind.
yeah, Ode to the West Wind. Okay, there was a part because I didn't attend the class, I think, or there was
Mm.
something. Um, I don't remember what you talked about, but did you talk about the Tirzarima? The
You know, in terms of how the poem is written, this has to do with its rhythm, the tempo. It's Terzarima
Yeah,
is
I
a
read
style.
about it.
Yes.
Should
This
I
is all
include
you.
that in the exam?
Well, if the question requires it, yeah. If it's specifically about the poem, you start this way. You say how it is written, and then go to the other details that the question is asking. Yeah, and there is no problem with that. Yes.
Okay, so well, since it's about the West Wind,
Hmm.
uh, it was I was actually intrigued because the Tirzarima is like a wave because of the literary way of writing this the
It's
poems.
it's a
So it's
style of rhythm.
yeah, it's a,
It's a metrical kind of thing. It produces music. Okay, it has
and
nothing to
it's
do with the content of the poem. It's a style that he has chosen to use, um, for whatever reason, But
yeah, it
this is,
says here in every
mm,
stanza pulls the next one in. So it
mm,
sounds just like the West Wind because he was writing it
you,
when he wrote the West Wind. He
mm.
wanted uh, like he was a cry for help during
you
that
mean
time.
you mean you mean he is trying to make the writing style help with the message, right?
Yeah, with the message. Yeah, can
Yes,
I
yeah,
include that in
yeah,
the
of course.
if there was a question? Okay,
Yeah,
all right, that's
absolutely.
interesting. I also have another question, but the
Mm,
question probably it's not relevant to the exam. When
that's
the
fine.
here it says that Percy Shelley he died in an early age, and then I
Yes,
read that his wife Mary Shelley, she well his poems she published them, but I remember that it wasn't edited. And then didn't she? She couldn't have edited herself the poems because she was a writer and she wrote a couple of Well, she wrote some stuff. So she didn't edit any of his work before she published them.
You know, she had to kind of edit them because they were very radical, typical of him. You know, he was
Yeah.
a radical poet who talks about politics. He attacks the establishment. Remember his poem, his England in 1819. This was a highly political poem. So when he died, and like we said, he died very young, and obviously he didn't make money, and he was also kind of he was not on good terms with the government. So she doesn't have a pension. She doesn't have anything to rely on. So what she did is that she at one point she would approach the father, and the father was not very helpful when it comes to finances. So she started to kind of collect his poems and his work and to publish them. But before she did that, she realized that if she published them the way they are written, they're not likely to sell because of his radicalism, and the atmosphere at the time was reactionary. Reactionary means ragay. People and uh, the government was there, was strong because of the failure of whatever it was threatening it. The French Revolution was threatening the English government. So now that the French Revolution is now a failure, they started to gather momentum and become stronger, and they started to conduct witch hunts against those who were opposing the government. And of course, Shelley was one of them. So when he died and his wife collected the poems, she knew that she has to kind of tone down and play down the language. The language is very radical. The poems are very accusatory, attacking the government. So she started to not change the poems. And she started to ask people to shift their perspective about the poems. She would have kind of notices, she would have footnotes, she would have prefaces and introductions to those poems and those works, saying, no, he doesn't mean what you think he meant. And she started to foreground and highlight certain poems, like To the Skylark and or To the West Wind, because they don't have much politics. And with
Yes. Yeah.
poems that have politics, she started to say, no, he didn't mean what you think he meant. He is innocent, he is this, and he is that. Oh, does
Yes.
this
I
answer the
got this
question?
now.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So she basically edited the parts where to be accepted, so that they doesn't
absolutely.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
And to a Skylark is kind of what when I read it, or tried to write about it. I've noticed in it's a bit connecting to nature, since a bird is actually
Mm.
a living being. So I might even include that it was connecting to a bird is actually connecting to a part of nature,
Yeah,
because
in
he
a
was
sense,
trying. Yeah.
this is the point of departure. This is perhaps what allies him with Wordsworth. But then he started to move away by engaging in talk about how the skylark is producing. Obviously, it's all singing that and singing is based on poetry. So he was trying to address the skylark, wanting to know how it produces, how it creates, and how it is happy. Obviously, creation and happiness are coupled together in the poem, um, and asking the skylark whether it is like a poet doing this and that, whether it's similar to another element of nature. Remember, he kept asking the skylark, comparing it to different aspects of life.
Yes, I remember
Yeah,
that.
mm,
Even though he's writing out of his imagination, because
yes.
to be honest, like some birds actually whistle or make sounds in because they're in fear or afraid. It doesn't always necessarily has to be a
Mm,
bird whistling out of happiness. Because when I read it, I was confused. Some birds aren't actually happy.
mm.
Like he
But I
compared them to
was,
human
yeah, but he's talking about a specific bird, which is the skylark, and he's also talking about the fact that the difference between birds in general and human beings is that they are high in the sky. They have this ability to fly away
freedom.
from the here and the now, the miserable here and the now, if you like. If you're not happy here, I mean, you have your wings and you can fly away. And it moves up where we're stuck on, or and we're stuck in Earth. We don't. We're perhaps we have this also, this idea of us being trapped because we don't have wings. We have to perhaps endure. We have to stay. So the bird provided an inspiration that he needed as a human being and also as a poet and as an artist.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
yeah, you're welcome.
Is it okay if I can ask another question,
Yeah,
or
absolutely. And
that's
this
all?
is why
Okay.
what this is why and what we're here for.
They as Mendes. Should I include the part where I say about Ramses II and Napoleon for the sculpture, or it's
Uh, yeah, focus on Ramses II because the poem is inspired by a visit that he made to the British Museum where he saw this broken bust of Ramses II. So focus on that. Focus on,
okay.
I mean, giving the example of Ramses II is enough. I mean, of course, you can reference other fallen heroes like Napoleon, like I don't know who else. I mean, all those great people are no more, and for all what they represented when in their lifetime, they are now no more. I mean, it's I perhaps forgot to remind you or to alert you to the fact that it's very similar to علاء أبو المعاري's poem. I don't even remember the title of the poem, but it, I mean, he talks to people and addressing them, and he says, please slow down while you're treading on the earth, because this is the earth or the ground is made up of perhaps the ashes and the bones of people that were um, that came before us. I don't remember the exact words in Arabic. آه، خفف الوطء ما أظن خفف الوطء. Um, and it's if you look at how striking the similarity is between the two poems, it's amazing. خفف الوطء ما أظن أديم الأرض إلا من something like this. If you Google it, you'll find it. So again, it's
Oh,
about
okay.
sure.
It's by who?
أبو العلاء المعري.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll do that.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
yes, it's about showing humility. It's about coming to the realization that no matter how great people are, they still die. It's a powerful statement against tyranny, against dictatorship, about vaingloriousness, because we're all vain glorious as human beings. We're so proud, we're so arrogant, we think that we're going to live forever. Yeah, man. Yes, it's a lesson in humility, showing humility. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, طيب. So, last time it was all about the spoken of and long about the Renaissance and the Elizabethan age and the Jacobean age, and spoke about Othello and the Duchess of Malfi, similarities and differences, different characters, women characters, the idea of transgressing against established order and the fact that you don't get away with it. Also, emerging trends in the 17th and the 16th century, the idea of merit as opposed to the idea of legacy and inheritance. We spoke about marriage as being transactional, um, where obviously the man and the woman are not consulted as whom they want or they choose for a spouse for a spouse. Um, we also spoke about the fact that this is a tragedy with all the components of a tragedy, and we also said that it's a revenge tragedy that has conventions. We spoke about the ending and how the different types of death that we have, the noble kind of death that we have with the Duchess of Malfi, and the kind of mean and base kind of death that we have seen with the other characters. We have seen how the other characters are reflecting on their life trajectory immediately before they die, and how they came to the realization that life is dust, that nothing stays, and the fact that they were pursuing nothing or nothingness, and the fact that they don't even have control over their destinies. Um, when we spoke about the two plays, also we highlighted the fact that you have malcontented characters in the two play. You have Iago and you have Bussola, but Bussola is more philosophical, is more profound, while Iago is a self confessed rogue. Is not as philosophical. He knows what he's doing. He is very deceitful. We spoke about special moments in Othello, for example. Um at one point, we spoke about the temptation scene and what it brought about and how it chooses Iago and his manipulation in action. We spoke about the character of Othello, and we said that Othello is very controversial. You have, critics who believe that he is innocent and he was betrayed by Iago, and that he was more sinned against than sinning, while other critics believe that what happened to him is self-inflicted. He did it to himself because of his self-dramatizing nature, because of his uh, um, because of this self congratulations that he had in his character. We also spoke about his insecurities and how those insecurities could have been one reason why he did what he did. Uh, his color, the fact that he is a foreigner, um, um, the fact that he was perhaps double the age of Desdemona when he married her. Um, Lots of insecurities, and those insecurities could have been one big reason why he he did what he did. Um, let's talk about Candide. And we talk about Candide. Candide is a highly philosophical piece of work, like we said, and you cannot, under any circumstances, separate it from its intellectual background, philosophical background, where there is talk about um, the idea or the belief in absolute progress and absolute development. People in the 18th century felt that they have every reason to feel cheerful, to feel happy, to feel optimistic. But some time later, and somehow they realized that this is not the whole truth. So, how can you be happy if there are earthquakes? How can you be happy if you still die, if you still get sick? And so people started, some people, started to be skeptical about the whole optimistic project. People like Voltaire, and they started because he was an empiricist. Empiricist means that he only believes in what he sees, in what he feels, in what he touches. So he said that the reality on the ground belies what you guys are saying about life being perfect and immaculate. So I mean, Candide was his way of expressing anger and frustration over those um, unjustified feelings of happiness and this unjustified belief in progress and development. So, in his novel, he had to refute and prove as false the claims of philosophers and poets at the time, those who believed that we live in the best of all possible worlds, that whatever is good, and the idea that you don't blame a deity for miseries and for bad things in the world. You only blame your lack of understanding, your limited abilities. He didn't buy that. He said, no, we have to understand why this is happening, and if we there is no there isn't an answer that is compelling enough, so something is obviously wrong. So while discussing this, I'm sorry, Candide, there will always be reference to the philosophers, the optimistic philosophers of the time, Leibniz from Germany, Alexander Pope, the famous English poet, um, even religious orthodoxies who also promoted the fact that if everything cannot convince you that what is happening is for your own good, so you need to realize that this is again because of you, because you are the inheritor of the original sin, long committed by Adam and Eve when they disobeyed God and kind of plucked the or the forbidden fruit and stuff like that. Um, so any discussion will have to bring this in. So Candide is about just that. It's also about different sectors of societies and how those different sectors of societies are being victimized and marginalized. And there is talk about women and how they are reduced to poverty and prostitution and all those kinds of bad things. And we have three examples by three women. We also have reference to how minorities were mistreated, whether they were Jews or Anabaptists, which is an offshoot of Christianity, women, slaves, and we also have this movement from one country to another, from one continent to another, looking for an ideal and a perfect uh, place or country where there is a fair distribution of wealth, where there is equal access to education, no discrimination based on gender, based on religion, based on color. Um, so that was the intention for Candide and those who were with him. They moved from Europe to South America to the Middle East, and the obvious purpose was to find a perfect place. They met all kinds of trouble on their journeys. They went to El Dorado, which is um, perhaps um, it could have been potentially the an example of a perfect place. And there was obviously nothing wrong with El Dorado as a place where people would live until they are 100 plus years old, where there is no competition, where gold, for example, has no real value and it is scattered on the ground and nobody is remotely interested in collecting it. So obviously, it was a perfect place, but not meant for people like Candide and whoever went with him because they come from the old world with its greed, with its materialism. So they couldn't tolerate living in this humble uh, and modest society that does not show in any interest in material things. So they leave El Dorado, not because El Dorado was bad, it's simply because they themselves were rotten and bad. And then they went to the Middle East with those biased concepts about the Middle East as, you know, that part of the world that believes in predestination and fatalism, to the extent that if they have rulers, they allow the rulers to abuse them because they think that they are predestined to live this kind of life, to have those kinds of rulers. So this was the concept. And Voltaire said that let's try and go and see how those people live. Perhaps they can provide an example of a perfect place. And they went to Turkey as a representation of the Middle East and the Muslim world. And the people that they
Doctor,
met, yeah, yes,
was it during the Ottoman Empire?
yes, during the Ottoman Empire, yes. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because we're talking about the 18th century, and the Ottoman Empire came to an end in the 20s of the 20th century, early 20th century. So what happened is that the people that they met are very simple but very wise. They met in the dervish. The dervish is this version of the the town. I don't know what they call it in Western literature and culture. It's like some kind of seemingly stupid, uh, out of his mind's individual, somebody who is perhaps half crazy. Um, and there, when they encountered him, especially Pangloss, they found him very wise, and he kept asking them to kind of shut up and focus on perhaps the bottom line, and not to mingle, or to simply mind their own business and not to talk too much. And obviously, this was a message and a statement against the philosophies and the talks and the conversations that philosophers in the West were mounting about the world, the creation of the world, happiness, optimism, and those were all represented by the character of Pangloss. He wanted Pangloss and the philosophers that he represents to shut up and lead a simple kind of life, away from abstraction and philosophies and theories, because obviously theories led to wars and destruction and all those kinds. And they also met the old man in another town or city, and they found that the old man was also focused on the idea of tending his own garden. And the conversation with him reinforced what the dervish said about them having to mind their own business and focus on what matters best, and to even start, tending their own garden. So tending your own garden means that you will not have time to think of others, to think of abstractions that do not get you anywhere. He said something about leaving the politicians to do whatever they want in the capital city, and living here in this small town, tending his own garden, minding his own business. So what we said about Voltaire here is that he doesn't give us uh, what he thinks is right or wrong. I mean, he offers scenarios, and it's up to us to decide on our own. And it seems that he was also happy with what he has seen in the Middle East, but he didn't show it. He didn't demonstrate. He gave us those examples, and it was left for us to decide on our own. So this is the novella. It's full of ideas, of course, but this is perhaps what is important about it. You need to think of it as a travel narrative. You need to think of the different journeys that we have. We have a metaphorical, philosophical journey, and we also have a physical journey moving from one place to another, from one country to another, and from one continent to another. You need to also remember that this is a satire, and satire is this kind of genre where you're attacking people and making fun of situations, and obviously don't do it for the sake of doing it because you have a reformatory end in view. You are trying to reform society by exposing its follies, social follies, and political follies. And then we move on and talk about the poetry. And we're talking about the early 19th century, where we have the Romantics, and we said that the Romantics are a group of poets, and we divide them over two generations. The first generation has people like Wordsworth and Coleridge, while the second generation has people like Shelley and Keats and Lord Byron and others. Again, what unites them would be the fact that they were rebels or um, people who were not happy about how poetry was written at the time and also how society operated. They were anti-government, and they were also anti-tradition when it comes to writing poetry. That's why their poetry would vary a great deal. It's not as monolithic and as rigid as uh, um, it was before them. So they tried to mess with the rhyme and the rhythm. They tried to mess with the ideas, and they have this focus on and reverence for nature. Spoke about what nature meant for them. It's the countryside, it's the pure elements of nature, and how those elements of nature provide them with the inspiration that they need, whether to kind of uh, be able to endure life in the 19th century and during the Industrial Revolution, or to give them inspiration for their poetry. Um, Spoke about their poetry and this idea of, especially with Wordsworth, this idea of homecoming and the idea of acceptance. Whether if you decide to go and live in nature, would you be accepted? Would you be recognized as a native to the place? So we have this engagement with issues like these, especially with Wordsworth. Of course, where Wordsworth is a poet of nature, and his poetry is all about the impact and the effect of nature on human beings. Nature for him is the inspiration, is edifying, and is soothing, and is teaching. And he wished that he would spend the rest of his life there, which he did at one point. And again, he had this worry and concern that for all the love that he has for nature, he wouldn't be uh, considered uh, um, um, somebody from those surroundings, those natural surroundings in the countryside. And his poems are about just that. We started off with I wandered lonely as a cloud, spoke about the inspiration that seeing those daffodils uh, left on him, and how through memory, when he went back home, how he was able to create, to write uh, a, a poem about the experience. Um, we also spoke about the other poems. We spoke about the brothers, and we also spoke about Pointrage's judgment. And again, you have this concern with, um, this idea of whether the poet or the persona of the poem belongs, whether he will be given the opportunity, will he be accepted. And of course, you still remember what happened in Pointrage's judgment, where we have this idea of laying a claim to a place by renaming it, and whether this is accepted. And we said that this is a form of colonization, typical of the European mindset. Again, the poem is all about, misjudging. Judging is bad enough. If you add to this judgment, which is bad enough, the idea of rash judgment, this is double the effect, the negative effect, and how they are blaming themselves. And so, however innocent and pure their intentions were, they shouldn't have renamed the place, because this is an act of cultural appropriation. And then we moved on to another poem, which is Brothers. And again, it's about this reunion that never happened between the two brothers, because one of them died waiting for the other. It's a sad poem where obviously Leonard, who came back, fails to recognize the places, and even the places failed to recognize him. So it was mutual, but the effect was even bigger on him. The fact that he lost everything, he lost touch with his hometown or his home village. He lost touch with his brother because his brother died waiting for him. And he started to kind of compare himself to the vicar of the place, who he is settled, has his own children, he seems to be happy, and he didn't go anywhere. And he, obviously unmarried, obviously lonely. So we have this kind of um, contemplation of the idea of homecoming, whether when people leave their countries and go for whatever reason, and when they come back, um, does life, I mean, obviously, we don't have control Z in life. You cannot retrieve those happy moments. You cannot kind of, retrieve and restore young age, for example, people that you were happy around and with, your classmates, for example, people in your neighborhood, even your family. So this is perhaps the message here. The idea of acceptance, the idea of homecoming, and the idea of whether there is a chance for people who are on the move, for them to go back and resume their life. Would life be the same? Obviously, the answer is sadly no. And then we move on to uh, home at Grasmere. And I said that this is like a, a part of a larger poem that was unfinished at Wordsworth's death, and he has this dream or ambition of writing a very long epic, very long poem, where he said that he's going to chronicle human endeavors, whether those endeavors were philosophical, intellectual, historical. So this was a grand ambition that remained unfulfilled because of his death. And in Home at Grasmere, here we have this movement from boyhood to adulthood and what comes with it. We're moving from innocence to experience to trials and tribulations. Especially when you're an adult, you see for yourself how hard life is, how sad and the realities of life are. Um, and then we move on to Shelley. And if you still remember when we spoke about Shelley, we said that Shelley has three um, things to his credit, three considerations. We think of Shelley, perhaps the natural poet who is inspired by elements of nature like a bird to a skylark and a wind in Ode to the West Wind. The vocation of the poet and where the poet stands, and whether the act of creation is something from inside or you have to be inspired, and who inspires you. And obviously it's elements of nature like the skylark and like the wind. And we have another consideration and another facet, an aspect having to do with the political radical that he was. He was a political radical, and this was clear in his poem England in 1819, where he spares no institution, starting with the king down to all the institutions of society were attacked: the army, the senate, the church, the the royal family, the king of force. Again, this was a very politically charged poem. And then we move on to his this flash point where he is a witness to history in Ozymandias, where he is talking about vainglory, the fact that no matter how long we stay in life, no matter how high we become in terms of career and position, we will eventually become no more. So it's a very strong message against not realizing that life is linear and there is an end for everything. So this seems to be the message. Humility is what the poem is calling for. You have to show humility because, again, however long your life is, it is short. Again, it is strikingly strong when you apply that to people in high places like kings and queens and presidents. because according to Shelley, they seem to be uh, sometimes intoxicated with the power that they have, to the extent that they forget that they will eventually die. So it was a warning and admonition against that. He says that they need to stop and take example from history, and he said no one was mightier or more mighty than Ramses II, an emperor like no other, a pharaoh like no other. But look at him now. Where is even a statue of him did not survive. It is scattered all over the place, um, and it's even hard to retrieve it because of how shredded it was. And again, it reminds me right away of Ala Abu al-Ma'ari's poem, and I would like you to look for it. It's very similar. Again, it's a statement against arrogance and against pride. And this was it. I think that ends the whole thing. I think we still have like 5 more minutes if you guys have any questions.
That'll be all, Doctor. Everything's clear. Thank you so much for taking the time, even though you're
Welcome.
tired. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Esma. Again, billah alaykum, I need you to write. Okay, I want you to write. Again, short answers do not get us anywhere. Small paragraphs, very small paragraphs do not get us anywhere. Write in long essays, write essays that make sense. Inshallah, I wish you all the best, and I'm sure you're going to make me proud, inshallah. يلا.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
You're welcome. يلا.
دكتور
أشوفكم على خير. مع السلامة. باي
مع
باي.
السلامة.
دكتور
اتفضلي أهلا وسهلا.
معلش دكتور، بس أنا أرسلت لك إيميل شفته بس من
آه
يارا.
زمان يعني. طيب شدي حيلك يا يارا.
لا بس دكتور، بس حبيت أبلغك يعني، بس إذا
مم.
إنك شفت الإيميل أو لا.
شفته يا يارا، شدي حيلك.
طيب تمام، شكرا لك يا دكتور.
اكتبي يا يارا. يلا
أهلا.
اكتبي ما تكتبليش كلمتين.
هو أنا ما بكتب كلمتين.
طيب 4 ماشي، اكتبي كتير.
لا أي دكتور، بس أقصد إن أنت شفت الوضع اللي أنا فيه والظرف الصحي اللي أنا فيه، عشان كذا أنا بشرح لك بس.
طيب خير، يعني أنا أدعمك على قد ما نقدر، بس أنت دعميني بإن أنت تكتبي، عندك وقت إن أنت تذاكري إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله على
يلا
خير والعافية.
ربنا يوفقك إن شاء الله. يلا نشوفكم على خير يا جماعة. مع السلامة.
مع السلامة. شكرا دكتور، يعطيك
لا
العافية.
الله يكرمكم. مع السلامة، نشوفكم على خير.
يعطيك ألف عافية دكتور، مع السلامة.
أهلا بك وأهلا بك.